People told me I was too old, too set in my ways, and too late to find real love, and I almost believed them right up until the moment I met him. My name is Veda. I am a quiet wife. My husband likes the quiet. I studied finance at a good university. I got the best grades in my class. I loved numbers. Numbers were clear and honest. They did not lie. I had big dreams back then. I wanted a good job at a big firm. I wanted to help businesses grow with smart plans. I wanted a career and a real future. But then I met Thayer. Thayer was tall with dark eyes. He wore nice suits every day. He drove a big black car. He talked about money and power. He sounded very sure of himself. He always looked calm and in control. I liked him very much. Then I loved him, so I said yes when he asked me to marry him. We got married in June. That day was sunny and warm. I wore a white dress. Thayer smiled at me at the front of the church. I felt like the happiest woman in the world. A few months later, Thayer sat at the kitchen table. He drank his coffee and read his phone. I sat across from him with a cup of tea. I told him about a job I saw at a finance firm. I said, I want to apply for this job. I think it is a good match for me. Thayer put down his cup. He looked at me. He said, a home needs a heart, Veda, not another calculator. He gave me a small smile. Then he went back to his phone. I looked down at the table. I did not say anything, so I became the heart. I woke up early every morning. I made Thayer's coffee first. He always wanted it black with no sugar. I ironed his shirts and made sure everyone was perfect. I cleaned every room in the house. I went to the store and bought food. I cooked every meal every day. Thayer went to his big office. He met important people. He closed big deals. He made a lot of money. His company got bigger every year. His name got more and more known in the city. I watched all of this from home. My days were the house and Thayer. I did not have a job. I did not have many friends. My world got smaller and smaller. Sometimes I tried to ask Thayer about his work. I wanted to understand his world. I wanted to feel useful and close to him, but Thayer always gave my head a small pat. He said, "You would not understand, honey. It is too complex for you." He said it in a kind and calm voice. I nodded. I said, "Okay, Thayer," but inside, something hurt. I held those words inside me. I held in my pride too, day after day, month after month. I told myself I was a good wife. I told myself Thayer needed me this way. I told myself this was love. I made myself small. I made myself invisible. Thayer felt strong and important. And I got quieter every year. 5 years went by. Thayer was powerful now. People respected him. He went to important events, and his name appeared in newspapers. He knew many rich and famous people. I had nothing of my own. No job, no career, no title, just Thayer's quiet wife. One Tuesday morning in March, Thayer put on his coat. He picked up his bag. He kissed my cheek. He said, "See you tonight." He went out the door, and I heard his car drive away. I took his coat to bring to the dry cleaner. I always checked the pockets first. I put my hand in the inside pocket. I felt something small and hard. I pulled it out. It was a small black phone. I did not know this phone. It was not his normal silver phone. My hands felt very cold. I turned on the phone. The screen lit up. There were many messages. The name at the top said Rowena. I knew Rowena. She was Thayer's lawyer. She was tall with red hair. I saw her at Thayer's work events. She always smiled at Thayer in a long and warm way. I read the messages. My eyes moved fast across the screen. My face felt numb. It was not only an affair. It was not only secret messages between two people in love. I read more. Thayer and Rowena moved millions of dollars. They took money from client accounts, but they did not put the money in their own names. They put it into new accounts, ghost accounts, fake accounts, but those accounts had a name. My name, Veda Chen. My name, my signature, my personal details, all on the papers, all on every account. On paper, I took the money. On paper, I was the criminal. I read a message from Rowena to Thayer. She wrote, "Once she goes to prison, we leave." Thayer wrote back, "Yes. Then it is just us and all the money." I put the phone down. I sat on the cold kitchen floor. My legs felt very weak. I sat there for a long time, 5 years. I made his coffee every morning. I ironed his shirts. I cleaned his house. I said yes to everything. I gave up my dreams. I gave up my career. I gave up my own name. And he planned to put me in prison. He planned to run away with Rowena and all the money. He planned to leave me with nothing. He used my name as a tool. I did not cry. Not even one tear fell. The phone screen went dark. The kitchen was very quiet. I picked up the phone. I put it back in the coat pocket. I hung the coat on the hook by the door. I walked to the window. I looked at the street outside. The morning light was flat and gray. My face was calm. My mind was very clear, clearer than it ever felt before. I said to myself, I loved him in silence, but now my silence will destroy him. Thayer came home at 7 that evening. He opened the front door and smiled at me. He walked over and kissed my cheek. He said, "I love you, Veda. Did you have a good day?" I looked up at him. I smiled. I said, "Yes, a very good day. And I love you too, Thayer." He put down his bag and went to the sofa. I went to the kitchen and made dinner. My hands moved. My face stayed calm and still. That was the start of a new game. It was my game. Every day after that, I played the same part. I cooked, I cleaned, I smiled. I asked how his day was. I said the right words at the right time. I looked like the perfect, quiet wife. But inside, I was different now. Inside, I watched everything. I listened to every word. I noticed every small thing Thayer did and said. 3 days later, Thayer said he wanted a dinner party. He said, "Let us invite some partners and their wives. Rowena and a few others from the office, too." He looked at me. He said, "Can you plan it all?" I said, "Of course, Thayer." I cleaned every room in the house. I bought good wine and good food. I put fresh flowers on the table. I set out the nice plates and the tall crystal glasses. I lit candles in the center of the table. The guests arrived at 7 that evening. About 10 people. They wore nice clothes. They talked and laughed at the door. Rowena came too. She wore a dark red dress. Her hair was smooth and perfect. She looked at Thayer first and gave him a warm smile. Then she looked at me. Her smile stayed on her face, but it turned cold. I smiled back at her. I said, "Welcome to our home, Rowena. I am glad you came." I took coats to the bedroom. I poured wine. I brought food from the kitchen. I talked to all the guests. I smiled at everyone. But I watched Rowena. She kept her purse on the chair right next to her. She never put it on the floor. Her hand often touched the side of it. She was very careful. Later in the evening, Rowena sat close to me on the sofa. She held her wine glass. She looked at me with calm and steady eyes. She spoke in a smooth and quiet voice. She said, "You know, Veda, in business, if something stops making money, you do not keep it out of pity. You get rid of it. That is the only smart move. Do you agree?" She looked at me without looking away. Her face did not change at all. I looked back at her. I held my wine glass in both hands. I said, "Yes, Rowena, that is very smart thinking." I gave her a small, warm smile. She looked satisfied. She turned to talk to someone else, but I knew she did not talk about business. She talked about me. I was the thing to get rid of. I was the thing they saw as having no more value. I kept my smile in place. I went to get more wine from the kitchen. About an hour later, Rowena stood up from her chair. She said she needed the restroom. She left her purse on the chair. The top of the purse was open just a little. I knew every corner of this house. I knew where all the cameras pointed. I knew every spot with no view. I moved fast and quiet. I went to the chair. I took a small device from my pocket. I put it near the security card inside the purse. The device copied all the card data. It took only a few seconds. Then I looked at the glass coffee table. Just before Rowena left for the restroom, she looked at her phone and put in her passcode. The glass top of the table showed the numbers as a clear reflection. I saw the 4 numbers. I put them in my memory. I stepped back from the chair. I picked up an empty glass from the table. I walked back to the kitchen. Nobody saw me. Nobody noticed a thing. At the end of the night, the guests put on their coats at the door. Rowena came last. She looked at me with a slow and easy smile. Her eyes said she already won. I held out her coat to her. I said in a quiet voice, "You forgot this, Rowena. It matches your cold eyes." Rowena stopped. Her smile went away. Her eyes went a little wide. She did not say anything for one long moment. Then she took her coat and left without a word. For the first time that night, she was not fully sure of herself. Thayer left for a business trip on Monday morning. He packed a large suitcase. He kissed my cheek at the door. He said, "I get back on Friday. Take care of things here." He smiled. Then he left. I closed the front door. I walked to the living room. I sat at the table and opened my laptop. I thought about everything. The ghost accounts with my name on them, the data I copied from Rowena's card, the passcode I saw in the glass reflection, all of it. I opened a new program on the screen and started to type. The screen filled with numbers and code. I typed fast. My fingers moved without stopping. Thayer always said I did not understand business. He said it was too complex for me, but I understood numbers very well. I always did. I worked for 3 hours. I got into the network of the ghost accounts. I looked at all the data on the screen. I saw my name on every single account. I saw the large amount of money. Everything was ready to move to Thayer and Rowena when the time came. I did not take the money out. That was not my plan. I built a special program inside the system. The program did one thing. Thayer moved money out of an account, and the money went somewhere else. It did not go to Thayer. It went to Rowena's secret offshore account, the account in Switzerland. The account Rowena did not tell Thayer about. I found that account number in Rowena's messages on the hidden phone. Rowena sent the details to herself in an old message. She planned to take the money and run without Thayer one day. She planned to leave him too. I just made that happen sooner. So Thayer moved money. But the money went only to Rowena's secret account, and Rowena's name was on every transfer. I typed for a long time. I checked every step of the program. I looked at it again and again. Then I looked up from the screen. On the desk next to my laptop, there was a photo. It was our wedding photo. Thayer and I stood in Paris. The sky was blue and clear. Thayer smiled his big, wide smile. He held me close to him. My face looked very happy in the photo. I looked at that girl in the photo. I looked at her smile for a long moment. I remembered that day. I remembered I felt safe. I remembered I trusted him. I believed he loved me. But now I saw the truth. He did not hold me close because he loved me. He held me in place. He kept me quiet and small. He needed me that way for his plan, and I stayed that way for 5 years. I looked back at the screen. I put my finger on the key. I pressed it hard. The code ran across the screen. Lines moved fast and did not stop. I sat back in my chair and breathed out slowly. Then I picked up my phone. I found a photo in my saved files. In the photo, Rowena sat at a restaurant table with a tall man in a gray suit. The man was a well-known businessman in the city. He was also Thayer's biggest rival. In the photo, they talked and smiled. They looked very friendly with each other. I sent the photo to Thayer. I used a new number Thayer did not know. I added a short text. The text said, "She is getting ready to take your money." I put my phone on the table. I looked at the laptop screen. Thayer thought he planned everything. Rowena thought she controlled everything. They both thought I was just a quiet and simple woman with no power and no plan. But I was in control now. Not them. Our 5th wedding anniversary came in October. Thayer said we needed a big party. He said, 5 years together is important. Let us celebrate in a big way. He looked happy and relaxed. I planned everything. I called a party service. I ordered fresh flowers for every table and every room. I chose the food and the drinks. I hired a jazz band. I sent invites to 50 important guests, businessmen, lawyers, and investors, all the top people in Thayer's world. On the night of the party, the house was full of light and sound. The jazz band played soft music in the corner of the living room. Waiters moved around with wine glasses and small plates of food. The guests talked and laughed. They wore beautiful clothes. The whole house looked perfect and bright. Thayer stood in the center of the living room. He shook hands and laughed loud. He talked to everyone. He was in his best world. Important people all around him. His big house. His quiet wife near the kitchen. Rowena arrived in a long black dress. She looked very elegant. She smiled at Thayer when she came in. She looked at me for only 1 second. Then she looked away. I smiled at the guests. I moved through the room. I talked to people and laughed at their jokes. I was a good host. The evening went on. People ate and drank. The music played soft and warm. Then Thayer stopped in the middle of a conversation. He looked down at his phone. His face changed very fast. The smile went away. His skin turned pale. He looked at the screen again. His mouth went tight and hard. I stood on the other side of the room. I saw his face change. I knew the alert came through. $5 million left the account. The transfer went straight to Rowena's offshore account in Switzerland. Only Rowena's name was on the transfer. Thayer looked up from his phone. His eyes moved around the room and they found Rowena. Rowena stood with a small group of guests. She looked at her own phone now. Her face went still and hard. Thayer walked to her fast. He took her arm. He spoke low and fast into her ear. Rowena shook her head. She pulled her arm back. Her voice came out sharp and low. Thayer took her arm again. He led her to the home office. He pushed her inside. He closed the door and turned the key. Some guests nearby looked at each other for a moment, but then they turned away and went back to their own talks. The music played on. I walked to the bookshelf near the office door. On the shelf was a small frame. It looked like a photo frame, but it was a small screen. A hidden camera inside the office sent its picture to this small screen. I looked at the screen. Thayer stood in the middle of the office. His face was red and angry. He shouted at Rowena and held up his phone at her face. Rowena stood near the desk. She shouted back at him. She pointed at herself and shook her head. She said it was not her. She said it again and again. Then Thayer moved fast. He grabbed Rowena by the neck with both hands. Rowena screamed. She pushed him hard with both arms. She yelled at him. She pushed again. Thayer pulled her arm, and she pulled it back. They pushed and yelled. They fought like two people who had nothing left to lose. All the trust between them broke that night. All of it. In one night. I put down the small screen. I walked back to the center of the bright room. I picked up my wine glass. The jazz band played a slow and warm song. The candles on the tables burned bright. The guests talked and smiled all around me. I took a slow sip of wine. Behind the locked door, everything fell apart. My silence did that. A hard knock came at the front door. I walked to the door and opened it. Outside stood many FBI agents. They wore dark jackets with large letters on the back. They showed me their badges. The lead agent said, "We have a complete file of evidence. We need to come inside." I stepped back from the door. I said, "Please come in." Every guest in the room went quiet. The jazz band stopped. Everyone turned and looked toward the front door. The room went very still. The lead agent walked through the room. He went to the home office door. Two agents took their places on each side of the door. The lead agent knocked hard on the door. He said in a loud, strong voice, "FBI, open the door right now." No sound came from inside. He knocked again. He said, "Open the door now." A loud crash came from inside, then quiet. The agents pushed the door open. They went in. A moment later, they came back out. They held Thayer on one side and Rowena on the other. Thayer's shirt came out of his pants. His hair was not neat. His face had a red mark on one cheek. Rowena's long black dress was wrinkled. Her hair fell around her pale face. They both looked tired and frightened. The lead agent spoke to the room. He said the evidence in the file was very clear. Thayer planned the whole theft. He moved the money and created the fake accounts. Rowena helped him and also tried to take the money for herself alone. My name was on all the accounts, but I did not know about the accounts. The evidence showed that very clearly. I was completely free from all charges. The agents put handcuffs on Thayer's wrists, then on Rowena's wrists. Rowena talked fast. She said Thayer planned everything. She said she only did what he told her to do. An agent told her to stop talking. Thayer stood still and did not speak. He looked at the floor. The agents led them both out of the office. The guests moved to the sides of the room to let them through. The room was very quiet now, only the soft sound of candles in the air. Thayer walked through the living room. His hands were behind his back. An agent walked on each side of him. His head was down. Then he looked up. His eyes moved around the bright room. They found me. He looked at me. His eyes were wide and full of fear. He said my name. He said, Veda, please, call a lawyer for me. Help me. Please, Veda. His voice shook. It was not the sure and strong voice from before. I looked at him. I did not shake. I did not cry. I did not look away from his eyes. I walked forward. I stopped very close to him. I looked at his face for a few seconds. I looked at the eyes of the man I married, the man I made coffee for every single morning, the man I believed in for 5 years. I moved close to his ear. I spoke in a very quiet voice, just for him to hear. I said, I found your second phone, Thayer. I stepped back. I looked at his face. Every bit of color left his face at once. His eyes went very wide. His mouth opened a little. He said nothing, and he did not move. The agents took him forward. They walked him out through the front door. Outside, police cars sat in the driveway. Their lights went on and off in red and blue. Red and blue colors moved across the front of the house. They moved across the faces of the guests at the door. They moved across my face. The car doors closed. The cars drove down the street. The lights got smaller and smaller. Then they were gone. I stood at the open door. Cool night air came in from outside. No more words were needed. Everything was already done. 1 year went by. Thayer sat in a prison cell. Rowena sat in a cell too. The judge gave them both 15 years. In prison, they still fought every day. Thayer said Rowena tried to steal from him. Rowena said Thayer put all the blame on her. They hated each other now. They had nothing left but that hate. On the night of the party, I gave Thayer papers to sign. He was very scared, and he did not read them carefully. He signed them fast, in front of 2 people. The papers were a post-nuptial agreement. The agreement said everything Thayer owned went to me. His company went to me. His buildings and accounts went to me. His investments and properties went to me. Thayer's new lawyer tried to fight the agreement later, but Thayer signed the papers in front of 2 people. The papers were legal. The court looked at them and agreed. Everything went to me. I did not go back to the house. One Monday morning, I got up early. I put on a new dark suit. It fit me very well. I put on my shoes. I stood in front of the mirror. I looked calm. I looked sure. I got into a car. The car drove to the city center. It stopped in front of a tall glass building. The building was 30 floors high. Thayer's company was on the top floors. My company now. I got out of the car. I walked through the glass doors. The lobby was large and clean and bright. Employees stood at their desks or walked across the floor. When they saw me, they stopped their work. They nodded their heads. Some said good morning. Some sighed still and looked at me. I walked through the lobby to the elevator. I pressed the button for the top floor. The doors opened on the top floor. In front of me was a long hall. At the end was a big wooden door. I walked to the door. I put my hand on it. I pushed it open. Inside was a large and quiet office. The desk was wide and dark. Behind the desk was a tall leather chair. I walked to the chair. I sat down. In front of me was a large glass wall, floor to ceiling, very big and very clear. Outside, the whole city spread out below me. Buildings and roads and parks and lights went on and on as far as I could see. The whole city, all at once, right in front of my eyes. I lived in this city my whole life. I walked its streets. I took buses and sat in its parks. I bought food in its stores. But I always felt small. I always felt like a shadow with no real place. Now I looked at it from the top. I did not smile. I just looked. The room was very quiet. No phone rang. No one spoke. No one came in. For 5 years, Thayer liked my quiet. He used my quiet to keep me down. He made me believe that the quiet was my only place in the world. But this quiet was mine now. I chose it. Nobody gave it to me, and nobody took anything from me to make it happen. This was my chair, my office, my city. My name was still Veda. I was still a quiet woman, but the silence, at last, belonged only to me. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you love real stories about love, life, and second chances, subscribe to Kavico. English Storytime new stories are waiting for you every week. Hit that bell so you never miss one.